Hello everyone, this is going to be a look at using iced for GUIs in Rust, graphical user interfaces. So iced is a cross-platform GUI library for Rust focused on simplicity and type safety. The goal of this video, just to learn a bit more about making a GUI in Rust. We'll build an SSH connection GUI, so a GUI that you can click on to create a connection to a remote device. These are the two main links that I've used. So this one's really good actually, Fogaricious on GitHub, ICE tutorial, and then the ICE book as well. These are some of the projects that have been built with ICE, so really impressive. I've actually installed SniffNet. So if you've got Cargo installed on your machine, it's probably quite a nice thing to do is to clone that and compile it and run it. Really impressive. I've not installed all the others, but yeah, so impressed with what you can actually do. I'm not at that stage yet, but what's attracted me to ICE is it's cross-platform and it's got first-class support for async actions, users' futures. So it really takes advantage of some of the major benefits of Rust. The things which you will need to get familiar with are widgets, so the visual elements of an interface, the interactions, the actions that are triggered by some widgets, and the state. State is the underlying condition or information of an interface. So again, this I always try and like relate things to other things that I've already learned. So I mean, obviously you've got like the model view controller sort of paradigm. So yeah, widgets, interactions, state. If you like these videos, please feel free to send me some sats over Lightning if you've got that option. And yeah, let's look at the project. So without further ado, let's actually bring that down and go in here and cd GUI SSH. I'll just make the font a bit bigger, clear that. Let's run it. Cargo. I'll do cargo run dash quiet dash release. I read that compiling it with release is a good idea because it can get quite slow and big. I've not looked at the size of the binary, but it runs. You'll be amazed how quickly this actually runs when it is when the binary is being used. Here we go. So not much to look at, but what actually reminds me of the early days of I don't know if you ever remember back in the 90s, early 2000s when they were a bit naughty, but they were called keygens, and you could generate a key to install some software. You used to get little pop-ups like this, and it's not a pop-up, but obviously the little GUI. So SSH to Think Center connect, and this is better work after all this build-up. Here we go. So that was about 5 seconds. So what it did was it took my credentials and the IP address of a remote Linux box. It did ls, and it also did uname-a. So you can see Think Center M73. So just to show it's not the box that I'm on, we'll do uname. Okay, right. So that's what it does. Not amazing, but it gives you an idea of how you can run some code from a graphical user interface. For instance, you might want just to have this as a little utility for yourself or for somebody else, say somebody else who doesn't know actually how to use the command line, like an employee, for instance, or somebody who's got poor eyesight, or I don't know, there's many reasons. And obviously, if you look at the actual project for this, one of the main sponsors is Kraken, who do they're a crypto exchange. So I'm guessing they're actually developing front ends for wallets which run with a GUI rather than a browser, because browsers have got all these potential attack vectors, and there's issues with SSL certs, and the EU are doing bad things with SSL certs, and I can't remember. But yeah, if you've got your own GUI that you can run, then that eliminates having a attack vector of a web browser, for instance. So let's go into the code. And I didn't know how to do this video, but I thought, well, I could either type all this out you could watch, but really that would take such a long time. My typing's not the fastest, so let's just dive straight into it. So there's two things at play here. We've got the actual code for what's happening, which has got nothing to do with the GUI at all, really. And then we've got the GUI. So we've got SSH, which does the SSH stuff, which is nothing to do with the GUI. And then we've got iced, which does handle the graphical user interface. Lots and lots of imports here. You can see they're mainly self-explanatory. So we've got alignment. So that's for like centering stuff vertically and horizontally. You've got a button, column, container, text, button, column, container, image, render, row, text, theme, alignment, color, font, length. So all typical things that you would expect to see on even like something like Microsoft Word. You've got, fonts and alignments and themes and colors and so on. So yeah, if as and when you need to add stuff, just refer to the ICE documentation, and yeah, you'll soon see. What I did was I did a demo first, which was a to-do list, and by doing the to-do list, I worked out basically how it all works at quite a high level. So the first thing to do is actually run your app, and you've got a choice of running it as sandbox or an application. If you run as sandbox, it's slightly easier to code to set it up, but you've got slightly fewer options when you are actually developing it. But absolutely, when you first start, definitely use the sandbox. So using the sandbox allows you to start your program in main like this. So with main, you've got my app. My app is actually a struct, so that's further down, isn't it? That's my app. So you do need a struct of the name of what you're going to run. Settings. So you can just have settings in default. You could just do settings there, and then double colon default. I've actually changed the window size, so that's that. And I've changed the position. So I've changed the X and Y position of where the GUI is located when I start the program. I'm starting to add something for status so that I can grey out the button once it's been pressed. So here we go. Here we get to kind of the bit that makes it really work. So we've got sandbox. So the sandbox for my app. Type message is my app message. A lot of this is kind of boilerplate. So you'll see message in most of the examples, and kind of without going too deep on all of this, you have something called an update function and a view function. So the view is the view of what the human will see, and update is basically a loop which keeps checking for if anything's happened, a button's been pressed. So it's checking for events basically. I've included you see the crab Ferris PNG. I've included that just because I wanted to. But really, a lot of this is more than you would need just to do your initial first project. So probably the first one to do would be to actually just do a I think it's the increment counter one where you just get an up and a down arrow and it just increments a number. So here, a lot of this is the visual stuff, but if we look for button pressed, then button pressed in the up here somewhere, we've got image background status bar, which is the view. Then we've got a column, which basically it's a bit like a div really. And then we're checking for if the button's been pressed. If the button's been pressed, then it actually runs update detects that it's been pressed, and it runs con. So this line here is what does all of the work really. Con. So on line 76, con. I'll show you in a second my GitHub for this, because the best way to build this up, rather than just copying and pasting all of my code or trying to deconstruct it and strip it back, I'll show you the GitHub and you can look at all the diffs. So as I've added more and more features, or I've improved the appearance and resized the window and added extra things such as the background image, I've added a row for a status bar, which I will do in future. The text, a container. So you can put text in text, or you can put it in a container. Fill basically is just like a bucket fill, so it just fills your whole container with the same color. So okay, con. This is using SSH2. Now I believe that this will only work on Linux, Unix, because you need libdevSSL. So on a Windows machine, you would need to then do stuff with PuTTY, presumably. I don't know, but TCP stream. So that's the IP address of my server. It's a little IBM Lenovo ThinkCentre, little micro mini box. That's the IP address of, so it's just running locally on my local network. 22 is the default port for SSH. So we create a session, mutable session, we unwrap it, we get we set this TCP stream to be TCP, handshake, auth. So we do the auth, that's the username. We just check that it's authenticated, just so that's set. And then we create a channel. So the channel is basically doing, for each thing you do, I'm not sure about this, but the way I got this to work was I just created a channel to do the ls command. So that's just the standard Linux command to do list. And so then I printed it, and then I started again with a second channel, or shadowing really. And then I did uname -a. And here we just waited channel.wait.close and exit. And you may see in the example in SSH2 on the cargo crate for SSH2, you might just see unwrap. I just thought I'd just use the match here. So if it quits with 0, then it's quitting OK. Otherwise, you've got an error closing the connection. So that is the explanation of the code. Let me just go to the GitHub. I'll just show you what I mean when I was talking about how you can build it up by looking at the diffs, because I think that's, if I was to be starting this again, obviously I've been learning this for about a week now, but if I was to start again, I would really appreciate just seeing how it gets built up. So if we go to repos and GUI SSH, which is on the red and green RGGH GitHub, just make that a bit bigger. If you come here, I've tried to document this. I have cheated slightly and used ChatGPT just to tidy up the documentation and create me this kind of README with the key features: imports, main, struct, theme, import. It's just like a terminology or a glossary of the. It's a glossary of the terms which you will need to become familiar with to work with ICE. Just while we're here, let's look at what I used, which was Awesome ICE. If you go to Awesome ICE, you can see all the other projects that have been developed with it. So all these examples, and then down at the bottom, an unofficial tutorial, which is the one I mentioned earlier, Fogaricious ICE tutorial, an official tutorial of the ICE library. And this is really good because it just says it helps you with your hello world, explanation of the sandbox trait, which is what you will be using to start with probably. and then you can go from a text to a button, text input, and it just you build a basically you build your imports, your main with your settings default, your empty struct with the name of your app, and then you just use the sandbox trait for your app, and then you add new, update, and view, and a title. And it is as simple as that to get started. I think there's a steep learning curve, so getting started has been relatively straightforward, but once you try and start to grey out buttons and do a lot of conditional stuff, it starts to get a little bit more. I would say it just seems quite a bit frustrating because it takes a really long time just to kind of grey out a button or something. So it's not. I'm not criticizing the framework, but it's probably lack of my knowledge. I've been learning Rust for just over a year, so on and off. Yeah, these are all kind of the visual things. So events, that's probably what I need to look at next. So then you create enums. Enums are widely used here. So um, obviously pressed, released, that's for the mouse. Yeah, you notice into gets used quite a few places as well. If you like these videos, please thumbs up, like, subscribe, comment, and send some stats if you want. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.